at the Perfect Lab Podcast, we're happy to introduce Whoosh Bespoke Wheels as a sponsor of the show. Whoosh Bespoke was born out of necessity. Their race team struggled to find wheels that offer the perfect fit, strength, durability, and that big old thing, a reasonable price. The people behind Whoosh Bespoke are racers and engineers seeking engineering excellence, and they offer precision forged wheels crafted by racers for racers, with a product lineup that includes a wide range of options from monoblock to modular wheels, including 2- and 3-piece wheel designs. All engineered from the finest materials. They do primarily use 6061 T6 forged aluminum, but they do offer things as high of quality as a magnesium alloy. So this really can work for any setup you're trying to go for. Customization is at the heart of what they do at Whoosh Bespoke. You can tailor your wheels with custom sizes, offsets, finishes, and even options like custom lettering, adding two-tones. Their colors include both standard and premium finishes, as well as special finishes like brushed, hand-polished, and even paint to sample. Every set of wheels produced exceeds the JWL standards and meets the rigorous WCEC quality standards, and they are tested by real people with real cars racing all around the world. And guess what? Me and Kilgore, we're also going to be part of that team, so we're going to be putting these things to the test. We're putting them on our cars. Kilgore's going to be repping out and going through all the time attack season. I'm going to be beating them up at HPDE days and just having a good time with them. So I want you to go take a look at them and make sure you give them a follow on all their socials. It's whooshautomotive.com, Whoosh Automotive on all the socials. Go check them out.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Perfect Lap Podcast. I'm Mark Jager. He's Mark Kilgore. He goes by Kilgore. I go by Jager. And today we are blessed with Time Attack royalty, PhD racing in the house, Time Attack legend Jackie Ding, and of course we have to have his magical engineer, Alex Lee, who we all know without Alex, well, realistically, Jackie would be nothing, right? It's all about the engineers. Not to say that an engineer hasn't done anything positive in my life, but, no. So we're here. We're ready to podcast. Well, we're going to touch a little bit on the history of Jackie Ding and Alex Lee. I just want to know, how did you guys end up meeting? And kind of give us a history of, your very first Time Attack cars.
We kind of faced each other off in an event by beating each other, by competing against each other. That's how we met in our first Time Attack cars. He was in his bug-eyed Subaru that you might be able to see in the background, up
hiding
there.
In the back.
Is that the white one up there? It might be. And then I was in my S2000 back in the day, and then we met each other at a NJMP Lightning. And for the majority of the weekend, I was winning until Alex grew a pair, and then finally, started driving slightly better with his way more powerful Subaru and beat me in his limited class car when I was street driving my S2000 around back in the day. NA. He was very proud of that. I wasn't. But yeah, that's how we met each other. Competed against each other, had fun, started chatting more, and then it blossomed into PhD eventually. So
that's pretty interesting, actually. Two competitors ending up building a business together. I mean, that's something that probably a lot of people really don't understand, and I truly don't understand it. So kind of educate us. I'm assuming you guys are co-owners in PhD. You guys own the business. You guys work together on a day in, day out basis. Probably have an apartment together. It's kind of like a TV sitcom in my head.
He did live in my guest room for a solid 2 years when COVID happened. Obviously,
I think it was more, man. I think it lived there for longer than that. Yeah. Actually, to be fair, we're not just part of the PhD business. We are the business. We're back to a two-man team now. R.I.P. Alan. He's been summoned back to the motherland to do things over there. But we're back into a two-man team, kind of tackling the business together. So we are the business. We are the whole business, effectively. But it's fun. I think, like you said, a lot of our lives kind of revolves around the sport of Time Attack. There are times Alex and I count back the years using what were we doing that year in Time Attack, which season it was, do we win this or do we lose this, or that's how we count the years now. So it's kind of weird and fun that way,
Okay, so give us a hint. So where is PhD located? Where do you guys do a lot of internet sales? Do you guys do a lot of people come in, bring your cars in? Do you work on them? What do you kind of do at PhD?
You go, Alex.
So we're in suburb Chicago. We're basically on the west side of the airport. So for PhD, the majority of the business is just like online sales, like a little bit, mixed in there with some of the more like bringing expertise on things that we're learning particular platform, like say the Supra, the M2, and then use the information that we gathered during competing and try to sell customer product that we truly, tested and loved and, that actually performed. So that was the majority of the business is online sales to end users in terms of like stuff that we actually use on race cars. And then right now we have a separate side of the business that we've been trying to grow for the last year is we're trying to get into actual parts development in terms of actually designing parts and engineering parts and work with either some manufacturer direct or some of our technical partner to actually bring some of the parts that we haven't seen or we feel is like it's necessary, but nobody's making it into the market. So that's like the second part of the business that we are trying to grow, for the last year, and we're still trying to grow that as into the future. So these are kind of the two parts of the business right now.
What's that business going to be called? Is it going to go under the PhD banner, or is it going to be something else?
It's probably going to go under PhD banner in terms of either we say, hey, blah, blah, blah component, but the PhD spec, or in some other way that we might just go help certain manufacturer entirely into the engineering side of it. So we might jump on board as a PhD spec, or we might not. So we're still we're going to be doing a little bit both. But if anything that's under is going to be either the PhD brand or PhD spec.
Okay.
Or it's just a complete consulting kind of firm, where we don't have to put our names on it, but we worked on it, we produced it, we helped produce it effectively.
Yep.
Makes sense. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, we've had quite a few people on this show interviewing. I've interviewed a lot of time attack drivers over the years, and I get amazed about how many times the Jackie Ding name comes to their lips. I mean, it is astounding how many times these guys are all saying, I'm in time attack because of Jackie Ding. It is
crazy,
awesome.
Right? It's crazy.
I absolutely love it.
Usually followed by something of, so I've got a Supra now.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but thank that car. Thank that car.
Yeah.
It is absolutely. I do love hearing that. I love hearing that people are inspired by you. They love watching your journey. I know myself, I kind of started following you more and more after your first trip to Buttonwillow in the S2000. And I'll be the first person to say it. I was like, who is this wild mofo going off on every corner, kicking up every bit of dirt he possibly could?
Yeah,
it was like any corner you could cut, you cut it. Anything you could jump, you jumped it.
Yeah,
and it was wild. But at that time, people were saying, he's a guy to look out for, your personality, and it paid off. I mean, people paid attention to you, and then I really started watching a lot of your YouTube videos online, and it really just kind of kicked off for me how you really showed your personality there, and just were able to do such a great job of being able to follow you throughout the weekend. I absolutely wish that I was as good as you in terms of being able to do that on your YouTube channel, because the way that you were able to combine all the triumphs and failures and just the overall weekend, a track weekend is not something that most people want to watch people do.
Completely get it.
It is absolutely hard to get people to watch a 20, 30-minute video about a time attack event that happened and you competed in, when it's like, I went out, I tried to run fast, I failed. I went out, I tried to run fast, I did it. I went out, I tried to run fast, I got beat by this other guy, I only got fourth place, I didn't get a trophy. And it's one of those things where you're able to do that, captivate the audience, and just keep on going. And inherently, as Kilgore mentioned, you have thus spawned an entire generation of people who have said, I am in this because of Jackie Ding, and I own a Supra, which we absolutely hate you for, by the way, because every rule set on the planet needs to be this.
Every time attack rule book because of that guy.
It needs to all be caveated with, and no Supras.
Yeah.
And you guys pioneered that effort with that Supra and really made it accessible and made it so that people behind you easily do these things. And so by your guys' efforts in that Supra, I 100, and then obviously we're watching you do it in the BMW now. So kind of give us some information on that, right? You guys pioneered these efforts in the Supra, in the BMW. How did you guys what was your technique? How did you go about that? And how were you so successful?
I guess I can talk quickly about like just videos, like the videos, right? The YouTube videos that we put out. I grew up learning a lot of English from Top Gear UK. That's the show I watched growing up. So for me, it was as much about the cars as it was about the people, and I just love the stories that they go on. You know, they try to do something, they fail, but then they make it interesting and captivating because of the presenters, because of the three idiots, if you like. So it was always like the show, even what we do nowadays, there's always a little bit of, okay, what's the storyline here? I don't want to make a video just for the sake of having a video available. What's the storyline here? What's interesting to people? Why would people want to keep watching half an hour into this freaking YouTube video that, you know, YouTube is supposed to be a 15-second platform nowadays. And we still try to focus on the half an hour, like 15, 20 minutes, because I feel like to tell the story that I want to tell, it takes that long, you know? And so the technical side, Alex can get into more, but for me, it was just, I always want to be able to tell the story on my YouTube. That like, whether it's a regular track that we're learning something new about this one new car, or we're going up against a mere super lap battle and trying to find that last little hundredth and being frustrated when we can and somehow blowing up crying when we did, that's the story. You know, that's the storyline we're going for. So
yeah, that emotion is what captivated so many of us. I know the excitement, the disappointment, those type of things. That's really what drew a lot of us viewers in. What do you got, Alex?
Yeah, so it's more like, I think, well, first of all, thank you. I think you're giving us a lot more credit than I thought we deserve in terms of like everything, like, you know, Supra and everything. But it was like, if back then, like, I remember very vividly that year when the first year that we bought the Supra, where we literally had to like jump in the trunk and reset in the car and everything. It was probably like with 7-8 Supra from everybody at the same event. Yep. And almost none of them worked. Like, almost. We are just like one of the more lucky ones that actually our car probably still didn't work, all things considered, but worked the longest in terms of all the one that, in terms of every single one that didn't work, which is like all of them.
Everybody else's worked for like half a lap. Ours worked for a lap and a half, and that's how we got a lap in every session.
Yeah,
like 8 sessions a week, we did like 8 laps. That's how we were like, okay, we got times nobody else did. Yeah.
Yeah, it was partially just, it's because I feel like back then, Jager probably know, because before the Supra, I had a F30 BMW. So I had a little bit of exposure in terms of like the basics of BMW in that rough generation, even though the Supra is technically G generated, but there's still certain things that carries weight. So there's a lot of things that it's either just some experience, my experience from the back, and also some blind luck, to be honest.
There's a lot of blind luck.
Yeah, a lot of things that we end up deciding. I was like, okay, just like, say for example, there's a little thing on the front damper of the Supra that at that point nobody really know what that was. So people start unplugging it, because when the car's only out for 3-4 months, you want to put coil around it. Hey, I don't know what this thing do. It doesn't look important to me, so we're just not gonna bother, putting like a bracket to properly mount the sensor and everything, or just like delete it or not plug it in. And the car doesn't freak out, so, oh yeah, maybe we didn't need it. But as it turned out, after quite a few more months after that, that's actually a sensor that determines your damper stroke effectively. That's the accelerometer. Oh. And then, yeah, and I would just like, when we were doing the damper, we didn't have the bracket for that sensor either. But from my BMW experience, like, you know what, BMW would never put something like this just random here, but let's not like delete it. Let's just like zip tie it in the rough general direction of where it needs to sit on the factory, just so we have one less thing potentially to freak out. And ultimately that become one of the factors that made our car last a little bit longer than other people's car, because a lot of other people end up doing to just, oh, I unplugged this, there's no code, we don't need it, toss it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that ended up being one of the things it's like just some experience, a lot of blind luck that just happened. We decide it was a conscious decision to leave it there, but in hindsight, that's probably what everybody should have done. But at that point, a lot of other people, especially if you like very heavily into Japanese car, didn't know that because they never had a BMW. So that was one of the reasons why our car work a little bit longer than most of the other cars. So that was the backstory of why everybody's car wasn't working at that time.
Nice.
So from that perspective, in terms of what have you guys, I don't want to jump too far ahead, we'll go back, but what have you guys learned on the second go around with the M2 in terms of its development versus doing it the first time, right, with the Supra? I'm sure there are a lot of things with the Supra you guys were just trying. You would do things, you would figure out, okay, this worked, this didn't work, and now you have all that knowledge. How much easier, I hate to say easier, but how much smoother has it been with the BMW M2 versus the Supra in terms of the development process?
I think it helped a lot because it gave you a general ballpark of, okay, I think this is where it's going to be now. Because when we were on the Supra, we started on the Supra, we didn't know where we wanted. We didn't know what was good for us, what was fast for us, what wasn't going to work. Whereas when we started with the M2, okay, it's a little heavier than the Supra, but a lot of the things, a lot of suspension geometry, a lot of like the motion ratios of the dampers and the spring rates kind of carried over. It's kind of a similar, so at least we knew of a ballpark figure to kind of start from on that car. So, and also say the Supra, when we first did the aero on that car, we went straight for kind of like a big rear wing, a decent splitter like everybody else. And it kind of worked to an extent that we know it kind of worked all right, but then I was struggling handling wise with the high speed understeer. And then so once we figured out the CFD side of things on that car and realized, oh, that made a huge difference. That's what prompted us to jump a lot earlier on the M2 to say, okay, first off, we need this sort of aero balance, this sort of downforce balance, because that's what I'm going to like. That's what I'm going to be able to extract out of rather than raw downforce of like, all right, we got 2,000 pounds of downforce, but 90% is of the back axle and the front's got like 10%, you know, things like that. Just in general that we know, okay, this worked and this didn't. So,
yeah, I think a lot of people were really surprised that, especially being in the class that you were in, they were kind of expecting you to come out with the BMW and throw much bigger aero per se on right from the jump start. I think myself included, I was kind of shocked when I looked at it and I go, that's like street class aero, if not, you know? And it was like, whoa, I can't believe these guys are throwing on so little aero. So
yeah, I can't believe it either, Alex. Why did we do that?
Oh, all right. One more thing that we actually learned from the Supra kind of carry over to BMW is that's one thing that we kind of realized at the year 2 point after doing a lot of experiment is initially the car in terms of like simulation-wise CFD is so aerally imbalanced. It was basically making 90% of downforce in the back, but like 10% downforce in the front.
It was 11.
Yeah, 11. And then we start to use suspension, try to compensate for that, and end up just making the car a lot worse everywhere. Like it wouldn't turn low speed, it wouldn't turn high speed. Then we realized there's one thing is that it's really almost impossible for you to kind of use mechanical to balance aero or vice versa, right? If your car is mechanically imbalanced, you can kind of manipulate a little balance in with aero. Like say for if cars like terminal oversteer, you can slap the massive rear wing on it, but it will only be okay in a certain range. Same thing there. If your car is massively aero imbalanced, and then you can't, doesn't matter how well you dial your suspension in, it's an overall net loss instead of a net gain because you'll be sacrificed, say for a car, your car's like terminal understeer on high speed because aero is entirely imbalanced. You can try to dial in, less roll stiffness in the front to make the car turn a little bit better. But overall, you're losing like the balance, you're losing drivability. So that's one thing that we realize is like the car in terms of aero and mechanical both need to be balanced for the car to be actually fast.
Yep, that's what year 2 and 3 for the Supra was. Once we got the aero imbalance figured out, everything we've done on the mechanical side of things to bring that back into line, and then we started finding seconds after seconds, and
yeah, then that's the same philosophy with the M2. Why we didn't start with something super crazy, just because we kind of want to keep a relatively balanced setup while just progressively say adding more front and rear downforce, adding more mechanical, taking on more weight. We don't want to tossing so many variable in the beginning, like a lot of people do those like massive build they do. Like they say, oh, I'm gonna drop off the most amount of weight. I'm gonna toss the biggest splitter, biggest wing, and the most amount of power. And a lot of time the car just wouldn't work, or you look at the video, the car is always struggling with it. And that's something that we didn't want to do. Like it was intentionally kind of avoiding to do with M2. So that's the reason why the aero doesn't seem to be crazy. Everything else, there's a lot of things that we was consciously just in terms of like doing something that's straight to the absolute top, but we want to take our time, but just slowly moving towards that direction and have a kind of like a sanity check every once in a while to say, hey, are we still moving in that direction? Did we learn anything to this point? That was kind of the mentality why we didn't win something insanely crazy with the M2 to begin with. That's kind of the mindset of the project.
And also, from the business standpoint, you need something that you can sell to people. And you need something that you can basically we need to fund this program with this program, we need to have M2 customers coming in who are, okay, we can order this, we can buy this because, I don't time attack my car, but I want to street drive it or I want to track day this and still be able to take my kids to school in this. That's the first kit was for them. The first kit is still, in my opinion, very good. We're still very proud of that project. It's just now with Revo, we're doing something bigger, a little bit crazier, a little bit, wilder, a little bit more of a track car build. So,
what's interesting is that was my original thought when I saw you bring out the BMW was that. You had a lot of really good answers to start, but my original thought was just purely, well, this makes sense from a PhD racing, from a Varus engineering standpoint, because this is a product that you could sell to any of these M2 owners as something that somebody could put on, be usable, and it's marketability, right? And that to me made a world of sense because, it seemed like I saw a lot of that with the Supra, where you guys were helping develop, helping try, helping test these articles on the Supra, and the next thing you know, bam, that's a new product that everyone and their brother are throwing on their Supra and just, slapping on and going fast with. So to me, that was my thought on the M2 project was, hey, here's our first rendition. Here's something that any one of you guys can go out, buy, use, play with, increase your lap times. And again, it was awesome to watch the YouTube series as you added these items in a slow, methodical manner and go, this is what we got out of this. This is what we get out of this. This is what we got out of that. And I thought that was really neat to watch. And if I was an M2 owner, it would have been something I'd have been watching pretty intently to understand where I was going to spend my hard-earned money and really drop my lap times or improve my car. So kind of a cool little factor there. I know
for
Kilgore,
sure. Yeah, for sure. You could tell by the end of season 1, at Laguna and stuff last year, we were kind of up against that upper ceiling of where the car was compared to where the competition, was. We're up against Chicane Motorsport, the E46. That was crazy. We're up against GT3 RSs with aero kits. We're up against, effectively Kyle and other boys who are our super guys who have effectively taken that car and taken it another level or two beyond that. And then we're trying to battle them with something that's, that we're still developing. And we're trying so hard, but the car isn't there mentally, right? Or physically. So, and so that's why we're kind of, over the winter, we're going to start doing a couple more things with aero-wise, with power-wise, with, wheels and tires, so on and so forth, just to try and improve the performance overall. So
nice. And I think there's there's a couple differences between developing a car versus a car that is just trying to go fast, right? You guys are developing a car over a wide variety of uses versus just trying to make the car as fast as it possibly can be straight out of the box, right? If you wanted to do that, you slap a big turbo on there with power, you take all the weight out, you throw some aero on, and you just go at it. Versus, and this is one thing that I love seeing you guys do, which is you guys will actually take the car out completely stock, right? You need a baseline level to understand what changes are we making, how is that affecting the car, and then knowing, okay, well, what step do we need to take next? And that's something that I don't know, I kind of struggle with when people ask me a question of oh, what do you think I should do with my car? And it's well,
have you driven it?
Yeah, if you want to be competitive, and you want to be competitive straight out of the gate, you need to throw power and tire at it, and that's going to get you to the top of the class as fast as possible. But ultimately, your ceiling may not be as high as it should be. Versus if you do things in a methodical way, you may not be able to get there as quickly, but ultimately your ceiling will be higher. But then I also see that that's where you guys step in and you guys have done all that work for everybody. And then you say, okay, here's what we learned. Here's what you can do. What are you looking for? Let us answer some of your questions, and then we can provide you like the best package.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and also one thing that we kind of double down on the M2 is when we talking about the Supras, like we always say everything beside the aero kit is a bolt-on that you can literally just buy from either from us or from company to do it. And then now with the M2, even with the new aero kit, like, we're trying to even go even harder into that direction. Like say, so now everything on the M2, like the new aero kit that we'll be using in 2025, it's kind of finished, but the reason why we haven't really seen it because we got it to a point that it's just like, when you design a splitter, the splitter is only a part of it. Into design mount, into get hardware, get instruction, into do testing, you have data. So we're right now in terms of product, yes, we're basically there. But right now we are trying to make it like an actual good product that any other M2 owner can just come in and buy. Then, you have all the hardware we're going to need. You're not going to have to find the fabricator. All you need to do is nuts and bolts, and you get the same thing. So that's actually a lot harder than we initially anticipated. But that's the thing that we want to, in terms of like go forward with the M2, just like make all the kit. When we sell it as a kit, it need to be like an actual kit. And we try to make as DIY friendly as possible at the same time too. So that's kind of the direction that we kind of want to go with the M2 compared to the Supra. And at some point, we might just go back to the Supra a little bit. Well, the Supra is on the lift right now for certain
Obvious
reasons. Yeah. So yeah, we're trying to, like, every once in a while we go back onto the older stuff that's already there and see if there's ways that we can improve a little more from things we learned, after that project done, to see if we can make like a revision of it to make it a little bit better for everyone.
Does the M2, the whole splitter part, does it give it more problematic issues because of, isn't that an oil cooler or something that actually downspouts under the car? Does that give you a lot of problems? Yeah.
So if you want to retain the factory oil cooler opening exit, yes, because you think about it, a splitter works because you want low pressure at the bottom and high pressure on top. But if you let it flow through, all the high pressure is going to flow right into where your low pressure is supposed to be, and then you have no low pressure, which means your splitter doesn't splitter anymore, right? So a big challenge for us, even well before we were working with Verse Engineering, was figuring out what's best, how to best deal with a solution. We looked at the factory M4 GT4 race car, and their solution was just, build a thick splitter, but have the oil cooler still have an exit that's in between the kind of factory bumper of the car and the actual splitter, so it can still flow through and still maintain that area low pressure underneath the splitter. So that's kind of the approach we went for with the same with the new Revo projects as well. So you still retain a chunk of the oil cooling abilities, but also you still have as much front downforce as possible.
So I think we probably all really enjoy doing this, which is sitting around daydreaming what the next project car is going to be. So when you were thinking, okay, you've had the Supra for a few years now, you guys have really pushed the envelope with it. Give us a little bit of like what your thought process was, and what did you guys go through in terms of picking out the M2 as the next project car? I'm sure you guys tossed around a bunch of different ideas, but I just love kind of hear like why did you ultimately end up on the M2, and what was that process like a little bit?
Well, we almost end up on the Nissan Z, which was, thank God we did it. Oh yeah, we were this close. We had to deposit down on one. It was off. We're very thankful we did it, because we would have been bankrupt by now if we went that route.
I can see why with you guys working with AMS. I mean, obviously they know that VQ engine very well.
Yeah, that was for sure one of the reasons we wanted to get into that platform. But I'm very happy we win the M2, because I think, one, our knowledge on the Supra kind of translated over really well. Two, it was kind of just a natural evolution of that car, right? The B58 versus the S58 in this thing. The S58 was just a little bit more powerful, and for us it was always about bolt-on performance, things that you can do really easily to improve the performance of your car. And building an engine, doing like a crazy engine build and custom turbo kits, so on and so forth. So just a lot of time, it's so out of the envelope for a lot of the guys that we're trying to cater to. Hey, I just want to do wheels, tires, brakes, and have a reliable track car. I'm not trying to do a big top-mount turbo kit or trying to make like 1 million horsepower. That's just not the goal, right? So How do we get something that can reliably do what we ask it to do? And fit decent tires, and actually is a little bit more practical overall. And that's how we kind of landed on the M2.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to watch you drive this thing, because obviously I just remember watching you at Laguna Seca, watching the live stream, and I'm not gonna lie, I was super excited. I was kind of interested to see if you were gonna throw on those new Hoosier tires. I had heard rumors that you had them. But the funny part is I think it was like the end of the first day. I was like, I wonder if he threw these things on, because I see you and you're just sliding everywhere, like just sliding the car around. And I was like, if he's on those new Hoosiers, that is not a glowing endorsement.
Well, I didn't have to do any of the unglowing endorsement. Everybody else did it after me, did it for me without us having to waste our set. Ours is still sitting there. We're supposed to do some testing on them. We haven't done them yet. But for the Laguna story, it was mostly just the setup direction that we went. Didn't really work. We went with a set of really stiff sway bars. It was full solid versus OEM. That's like a hollow sway bar. And the full stiff bar plus the coilover springs that we had going on, it was just way too stiff for the car. So you can see as it was, anytime it breaks traction, it's a very violent, very aggressive, very quick snap. And then it requires you to like very quickly counter steer, and then it gains grip and it snaps back quickly. And so you're just constantly in this phase of like, oh, this snapping, or catching, oh, snapped again. You snap multiple times in a single corner, and then you're just clinging on. You're like, oh my God, what's, yeah, it was very white knuckle. That's kind of the short version of that.
Yeah, kind of make the independent suspension not really independent anymore. Yeah, it was that stiff.
Yeah, we had live axle effectively front and rear.
Yeah.
It was the Jackie Ding of old, man. The old ding thing, just around the entire track.
Yeah, not in a good way.
Yeah, no. I literally told Alex after one of the sessions, I said, come back. This is scarier than the 8.6 at Lime Rock. Because the 8.6 at Lime Rock was a terrifying experience, because that was on bump stops, by the way. That entire weekend, it was running on bump stops. So that's why the car didn't really want to grip. But the M2 in that weekend felt very similar to that experience. So
it was very impressive with how you guys were able to react to that and come back the next day. It looked like a completely different car the next day. And you guys were able to put down some really good lap times, which surprised me. Again, that's where I was curious if you quite literally threw like a whole different like set of tires or set of something on, because
it was a set of tires.
It was a set of tires, but also just credit with you. It's like Jackie is one of those drivers that we actually, a lot of people, we don't show a lot, but we look at data and video almost like at the end of every day guaranteed, and if we had time between every session too, right? We look at data, we look at videos and everything, and we change setup. Like sometimes you just don't have time to do it for every session, but we always do it at the end of the day. Like so, day two we. Usually the first thing I get to the track day one, just like, tire, setup change, get it ready. So that's something that we showed a few times in the video, but that's something that we always do. But also he just, I've worked with different drivers before. Some driver like you look at the data through them, just like, oh, I need to do this, do this differently. And then he goes out, does the exact same thing that he did before. Yeah. Jackie is one of those drivers that you look at data and figure out exactly what the car's doing or what he was doing, and then he can go out and execute what the data shows that you're supposed to do. That's one of his strengths that I really, it's like, I know a lot of pro driver can do that, like say EMSA, WEC, F1, a lot of pro driver can do that, but it's a really rare talent in what we do. Yeah. And that's one of his great strengths as a driver, because he understands how the car works. He understands what to produce lap time, and he understands how to digest data in terms of how to either just do things to make the car do things that he wants to do, or do things that make the car doesn't do anything that he doesn't want to do. So that was one of his strengths.
So when you're really looking at this data, right, and you're trying to understand, you're trying to relate to Jackie there, and just trying to figure out what you want to do here. Obviously, you're using that data to make changes to the car. You're using that data to make changes to your driver inherently. So what are kind of some of the constants that what are some of the things that you're really looking at from, like, if you're trying to tell someone on a basic data level that they should be looking at to gain the most amount of time, right? The thing that's going to help them the most. What would you tell your run-of-the-mill starting up time attack driver to start looking into?
All right, I'll do one driver and you do one tech, Alex. How's that?
Okay,
So,
sure.
If you're asking me how to find lap time in just giving me a data sheet and say, this is everything that the car took, find time. I will find time through brake release. Brake release for me is like the key, because you set up how you release the brake. I think is more important than how you actually apply the brakes, because releasing the brakes properly can help you set the car up for a corner. You jump off the brakes versus rolling off smoothly, and even when you actually want to release the last 15%, last 10%, that dictates how the car enters the corner too. So it's some corners you may want to do a little bit of a sudden brake release just to get the rotation on entry. Some corners you want to be very smooth out the brakes. You want to trail in a little bit more. Some braking zones, if the car is really dancey already on entry, you want to roll off the brakes completely and just let the car do the entry for itself. So for me, I think that's where I look at a lot of times. If Alex and I would look at data and we're looking at, this one lap and I'm getting crazy on oversteer on entry, I just look at the brake release. Oh yeah, I dragged the freaking brakes in because like a freaking dummy. All right, next time don't do that. Get off the brakes early. Let the car do the work. Don't overload the front end and don't let the rear snap. So, yep.
Nice.
Yeah. For me, because I help a lot of customer on like remote setup and stuff. The one thing that I think everybody should have is video. And I'm not talking about, there's one thing like, a lot of people like, Catalyst, AIM, all the things are getting very, very popular. But there's one thing that I personally really like, the ease of use for the Catalyst. But the problem to me is that, they recommend you mount the camera on the windshield, but it doesn't give you any driver input.
Yep.
To me, like a roll bar cam with preferably, at least you can see the steering and you can hear the engine brake. That actually give you a lot more information than what the Catalyst with the windshield mount, dash cam will give you. Because a lot of times it's like, hey, Alex, the car is understeering massively. What do? Then I look at into the video, he's literally chugging the car in when he's on the gas. When the front's unloaded, he's telling me, yeah, the car is understeering. I was like, hey, have you ever considered, lift off, don't be on the throttle when you try to turn in, so maybe put some load in the front. So
have you considered driving better, basically?
All that, but the thing is just like without
blame it on the driver, man. Such an engineer kind of thing.
Yeah, but having like a steering brake throttle trace is relatively difficult in some cars. Some cars you can just plug in over to get it, but it's relatively a lot of hassle for like just a guy that just take his fun car to track it every once in a while. But it's a lot easier for people just to invest in a good camera and a roll bar mount. That way you can see where the car is, you can see his input, and you can see what the car is doing. So in terms of like helping diagnose what you need to go faster, I personally feel like a really good roll bar camera is probably the easiest and the best thing you should invest, just so other people have some reference to help you. Like, are you driving it wrong, or the car just that understeer, or are your lines difficult? Because that's literally one view will give you the most amount of information that you can get from a video.
And can I just say 30 seconds? Can I use 30 seconds? Like, just because my YouTube videos are mostly point of view, first person camera, doesn't mean I actually use my first person videos to study my driving. I use a roll bar cam. Like we always go, when we need to find like the last little bit of detail, roll bar cam, because your head moves around so much, it's never gonna give you a stable. Whereas a roll bar cam, especially if you turn off the stabilization, actually gives you a lot like solid. Like, okay, the car's rotating right here, the car's doing this, the car's pitching down. Giving you a lot more like small details on that. So
get a really, really good roll bar cam, and that helps in terms of like figure out your driving, figure out the car setup, figure out your driving line, all those things. That's like the simple thing that give you, like the one thing that give you the most amount of information with just one item.
Let me give one more tip, especially on the roll bar cam. Man, it drives me crazy. And Jackie said this, is when people leave the stabilization on and you go through a turn and then you're like looking out the side mirror, the side window, and then you're like, turn the like automatic stabilization off. It's still gonna look fine, and you will actually be able to keep your point of view where it's directed. The other thing is, if you're using a GoPro or really anything, you need to learn what is called an ND filter.
Or EV comp. EV comp.
or
I was gonna
EV
say that.
comp, yeah,
Yep.
is which will allow you, right? So like if you're watching videos and the outside is just totally blown out white, right? Like that's because the interior is so dark that you can't, right? It's trying to open. I don't know too much about.
It's trying to
Anyway,
focus on the interior.
aperture.
yeah,
if you-
exactly. Right.
if you
Like,
dial the
it's
EV
taking
count-
brightness.
Yeah, but if you
Yeah.
dial the EV count all the way down to negative, it focuses on the outside a lot more than on the inside, and you really
Yeah.
want to see what's on the outside. So yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So you don't want to make it too dark to where you can't see what you're doing on the interior, but like either dial down the EV comp or get like an ND8, maybe an ND12 filter.
I've done
And you can
16.
just 16. You can just stick it on the lens if it's a real bright day, and it makes like such a world of difference. So it's actually usable video data that you can watch. So just a couple things. Turn off the stabilization, and either mess with the and just like Google how to best set up a GoPro for cars or for interior, and you can find plenty of them. So this sort of brings me to a question that I had, which is, I feel like, how do you guys deal with, especially us as time attackers? We rarely go to a track with the same car. And what I mean by that is either maybe a totally new car, or we rarely leave the car as is, right? So we're going back the next year. We've got more aero, more tire, more power. How do you guys sort of try and work with like, okay, well, here's what we did last year, but here's what we've changed. So here's what we're expecting, or here's what we think we can do. Like, how do you guys sort of deal with that, where you show up and something's different every time?
I feel like that's motorsport though, because even in Formula One, they go back to the same track every year. And the conditions are different, the wind pressure is different.
Sure.
It's always different, right? So
Yeah, but also
it's
like
always a guesstimate, I feel.
yeah, also I think a lot of the people's been chasing, more power, more downforce without chasing the reliability, and that's kind of, like a trend, especially in the higher class of what we're competing right now. A lot of the time, to be fair, the cars are barely hanging in together for a single lap. Then, right?
Are we calling out Dewey here? Are we calling out Dewey?
A lot of our friends, like, to be honest, a lot of our friends. And back then, when our like, we all been there. We all, like my Subaru US 2000 at one point is always been like that. So I guess instead of chasing the sheer specs of the car, maybe sometimes consider just turn it down in terms of like power and try to get a little more reliability whenever possible, instead of turning to like, then you can actually drive a little more so you get more data point, or what you kind of, in terms of like development of the car, instead of just like going blindly into like, hey, I want the biggest and most badass parts on the car, then I'm going to figure out how to drive it, except the car almost barely works, or, blow up every 35 seconds.
Yeah, for sure.
So don't do record or raw is what you're saying, do use hashtag.
That doesn't help. That does not help.
Well, that's something Jager and I have talked about, like, and I'd love to get your opinions on, because we're even seeing that at like the professional world time attack level, especially these guys that are now running like the Michelin slicks. They need their cars to last 2 or 3 laps because they can't even get the tires warm right on one lap. And
I mean,
not to
I will
mention
say this.
Yeah, go for it.
GST always said they set all their lap records on low boost, because every time they went to go high boost, it would frickin' blow up. And so they'd always set all their records on low boost.
Not us. I guess our high boosters are high enough.
Hey, man, you got to go for broke. And plus, you're not driving a Subaru, so...
Yeah, but also, we all know this. Unlimited, like, those unlimited or super unlimited projects are incredibly damaging in terms of, like, financial.
Yeah.
Or your, bank accounts.
Yeah.
They're, like, incredibly bad.
Which time attack project isn't extremely damaging on our wallets?
Yeah, but also, like, it's not like everybody has a free engine, if you blow one up, right? So it's ultimately...
we can't say Sunday Cup anymol, right?
Not a real
SC.
time attack.
Yeah.
Not a real
Whoa. Gonna get canceled by Grillite people out here. Wow.
Since we're on the pod, I'm gonna say I have no problem against any person running Sunday Cup or Columbus C, but I just think that class has got to a point it's so dangerous. Like, we have seen so many, rollover, like high-speed rollover stuff. Like, I I just like my problem with that class is not the people, not the rule book. It's just like we've almost seen like a 1 or 2 roll every.
I think it's every year now. Yeah.
Every year, almost every event. And these cars are like, we had a Honda Fit here as a shop run around. We took it like on like a 40-mile round trip, and then by the time we came back, it was like, you know what, we're not taking this on another road trip.
It was barely a road trip. We went to freaking downtown Chicago for a hot pot, and we
it was
almost
just
died
not
on the
safe.
highway.
It's just not safe. And like we had friend that got into some rollover incident in a Sunday Cup car, and luckily that car had a roll cage, like a half cage. But if that car did not have that half cage, he would probably be not with us anymore. Like he's probably gone. So that's at that point I was thinking, like, as fun as an entry level it is, it's getting to a point that I personally think it's way too dangerous for the participant to, just the nature of those cars.
Interesting take, Alex.
That's my problem with the whole Club SC thing is like, I wouldn't. Like, I probably wouldn't let Jackie do it either.
I didn't realize they changed the name to try to make it seem a little bit more interesting. So that's kind of fun.
Well,
it is still very interesting. It is still very interesting, but I feel like a half cage should be mandatory, considering all the cars that participating are very flimsy.
I'm surprised it's not, to be honest with you.
But the problem is, first of all, it's not, and the second problem is a lot of them, these are actually their daily. So even if they wanted to, the fact that that's their only car is they can't because, oh yeah, honey, I just had this Honda Fit that, that's I need to get to work. But for me to participate in grid life class, I need to put a half cage in it. That robs entire cargoes this way. That's just never going to work, right? So that's kind of my problem with it. It's just like, it should somewhat mandatory a half cage just for the safety, or they should mandate a tire so the car literally has no grip to roll over.
Because that's kind of what my thought was. You put a crappy tire on, and that solves all your problems. I mean, that's literally apparently what more organizations should be trying. I know it sucks to slow people down. With that said, we're kind of going to jump into 2025. So, what are you guys' plans for 2025? What are you guys going to be actually doing? Who are you going to be running with? What events you're looking forward to? Time Attack, GLTC, other. What you got?
GLTC is going to probably take a backseat this year, just because last year GLTC was kind of a self-fund thing by me, because I'm like, I've had enough of, driving BMWs. I need a getaway. So that was my kind of getaway. It just drag my own little stupid A86 out to the events and have a really good time with it. And I had a great time, honestly, I did. And I think if anything, the rules this year would help me even more, because they kind of balanced everything a little bit more towards the lower horsepower cars. I would love to do it, but this year we're kind of trying to focus a little bit more on, okay, we spent a year losing with the BMW now we want to start, breaking the rule book.
Learning. Spend a year learning.
No, losing. Losing is a great,
I see
losing
the fire. Losing creates fire.
Oh yeah. Brad Perkins from Chicane Motorsports. He posed with his bigger trophy in front of my M2 FTRI just to show me, like, yeah, I beat you, motherfucker. I'm like, yeah, no, okay, that's it. I've had enough. I'm not losing to those guys anymore. That's not gonna happen.
Kid gloves are off. I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
It's rivalry, right? Everybody's just trying to go have a good time, but we're gonna really try really hard this year.
Yeah, we did a decent chunk of. Yeah, go ahead.
One of my favorite things that I've seen, and it really happened this year multiple times, and I know Jager, you saw this as well, is a bit of the rivalry between Gabe Zamora and Brad Perkins. So Gabe in his GT3 RS versus Brad in his E46 M3 with the V8 swap. But like, that was super fun to watch. And I think that this is one of the things that's always cool about Time Attack is at the end of the day, they were both like high-fiving, smoking a cigar after the end of the event, and like Brad's rubbing it in, that he came out on in 2 events. So it was Coda and Laguna, right? Like literally the last lap, he sets a faster time than Gabe and knocks him off the top step. And Gabe's like, you know what? Like, he got me, fair enough. I'm gonna come back next year. Like, just like Jackie, it sets a fire in you, and you're just going to come back and you're like, all right, like I got to find more time. But everybody's doing that, and that's how we continue to see these times just get ridiculous these days.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's been interesting, as your words said, to watch you lose in the BMW this past year, because I know how much of a competitor you guys are. You guys have this competitive drive that is not, unlike very many people, it is so high. And I know coming in fourth, coming in sixth.
Don't even rub it at anyone. I've had no.
There's been a lot of let's say purchases for the M2 happen in the last bit. A lot.
So what have you guys been doing over this? What are you guys planning over the winter? Obviously, well,
Everything.
Everything.
Okay.
There's been a lot of purchases.
Let's go back a little bit. SEMA and PRI, you guys had a big announcement. You've now moved to RevoZport for a lot of the aero from Verus to RevoZport. I was there at PRI, got to take a look. Everything looks like primo, really, really good. So congrats to you guys on that. Tell us a little bit about that, and then where that is, what you guys are doing with that into 2025.
Revo, we got brought onto Revo kind of by August, actually. So that was when we really started jumping into this project. So from August to SEMA, which is November, we had a M2 converted entirely to the new Revo kit. There was no product before August. I just want to make that clear. So it was very, very short turnaround time. Some of the stuff on it we're still not 100% with. That's why we're holding off on the testing and so on. But it's very impressive what the new company is being able to do. And we're brought on as I'm the director of sales and director of motorsport. So I get to do my two favorite things, which is making money and spending money. It's perfect. Yeah. So, CFD aero, everything on the CFD on the race side, we're going to be able to design, and also we're going to a wind tunnel very soon with the M2, just to be able to find out, how accurately how accurately, and a rolling road one. That's what we're going for.
Oh wow!
Not
nice.
not the one in the
A2,
where is it?
not the A2.
No. Not the one where basically. Yeah, we love that. We love those people over there, but it just seemed like you're effectively driving a car through a small tunnel at all times because the walls are so close to you.
Like, say it's the size of it. You're like with a car. Well, M2 is already a bigger car. You're well within the boundary layer of the wall and the floor, and they don't do any control. It's not a rolling road, and just like it's good for. It's also that tunnel is okay for visualization in terms of like, top aero surfaces, but a lot of the thing that's going on the M2 is actually happening on the floor. So that's why going to a rolling road is actually a little bit more important, just to get the correlation between our CFD model and what the car is actually doing. So we get to map the car at yaw, with rolling road at different ride heights. So that was the idea that, just do it properly one time, but all the data that feeds down to the development for all the future kit on the RevoZport side. So that's why, it's going to be out, but in terms of like, how much is it going to cost, but in long run, I think effectively that investment is going to pay for itself in long run, because it will benefit every single future kit that we just develop for other cars.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what events are you guys going to hit up? What event are you excited for?
So I think we're doing a chunk of the Grid Life calendar. Beyond that, we're talking to SCCA about doing some more of their time trial, the Tire Rack Time Attack Challenge. That series looks pretty interesting. We're very excited to get back into it. John Hunter and the guys over there are great. Grid Life, everybody knows Grid Life at this point. It's kind of, I was going to say the premier Time Attack series. It's kind of, at this point, it's the only Time Attack series. I love you, Jason, but that's just kind of how it is. We're doing Super Lap Battle, though. That's always been kind of our yearly go-to.
Super Lab is all. We always we haven't missed a year, and we don't intend to miss every year as long as that's a goal.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's CODA, right? Like you said,
it's where we started this team.
Oh,
yep.
Really? Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
It's our first notable victory too, and I think that was the one where Alex and I were crying in champagne, and it was great. It was great. So we'll always go back to that one, and then there's some other ones we're looking into, maybe Octane. Time Attack kind of down in the kind of the Texas, Atlanta area. That might be on our calendar as well. And then that's pretty much it, though, I think. So,
I mean, that's still a heap of events. Obviously, we all know, anybody who's been around Time Attack, just getting out to all these events is a task within itself, right? You're giving up a ton of your personal time, a ton of your energy,
what is personal time?
Oh yeah, I forgot. You guys own businesses, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We call this business.
Yeah. But it's tough, and I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of a weird thing. After going to Superlap last year, because I always held this nostalgic sense, right? Bud and Willow Finals to me will forever and always be Superlap because that's what it always was, because it was Superlap Battle Challenge, at the end of the day. But now after going to Coda and going to Superlap and then going at the end of this year to finals, I really got to see that contrast between those two events. And like you guys are saying, right, Superlap at Coda is for sure you can't miss an event on the Time Attack calendar. I think anybody in Time Attack absolutely needs to be there. I do think that Grid Life is really holding it down from a real conscious decision like factor. There's only 2 events in California. Obviously, me being a California guy, there's only 2 events in California, and that is Laguna Seca and Bud and Willow Finals. I'm a little depressed with SCCA that they didn't even come to California, but it's kind of an interesting thing there. But you guys end up in a situation where you guys get a lot of opportunity to pick what events that are interesting to you guys. We just did the essentially the 2025 calendar this past episode, and I will say I was intrigued by SCCA, by Global Time Attack, by Grid Life at their event choices. SCCA and Grid Life did have a lot of overlap, so we were talking about that as like you could run SCCA and then you could run Grid Life, and if you were someone who was really trying to dial in a car, you could go to SCCA, get the car a good setup, and then go to Grid Life and have it dialed for that thing there. But it all depends, again, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you going to be in the same class? Like you guys are doing SCCA and Grid Life as a big premier aspect of what you're doing. What classes do you guys run in each? And how do they really correspond?
I think we're still going to be in Max 1 for SCCA. And then still, Grid Life?
Unlimited. Track mod.
Sure, yeah. So there is some crossover. Even back in the day when we did the Supra, it was GTA Street and Grid Life Street mod. It was still, there were still things that you were allowed to do in one class and not allowed to do in the other. So we just didn't build it to the limit of either rulebooks, But that was always a conscious decision because, we can maximize it for one rulebook, but then you're locked into one series, We don't want to be locked into one series. We always want the car to have a little bit of flexibility to be able to go to a couple of different events and try and, mix it up a little bit everywhere. So I think we'll still have that approach on the M2, try to be as multi-classed as possible. Like maybe making an adjustment here and there and just call it, okay, we put the passenger seat back in, now it's a Max 1 car. If we take it out, it's still a Grid Life Track Mod car, something like that.
Yeah, it's still good to see that you, with SCCA, with Global Time Attack, and with Grid Life, you have the different classes, at least the higher classes, there's still a fair amount of overlap, right? Like Unlimited among all 3 of them are pretty much going to be the same.
Yep.
With Global Time Attack, you've got Limited. With Grid Life, you've got Track Mod. With SCCA, you've got Max. Those play pretty well together for the most part. And then with Jackie, as you said, you've got Street and Global Time Attack. You've got Street Mod. Those play pretty well together between Grid Life and Global Time Attack. Pretty much you get bumped up to Max. There's such, and this is one thing that Jager and I have talked about, there's such a huge gap between Tuner and SCCA and Max that basically Street Mod and Track Mod are going to be playing together, which, if you're Kyle McHugh, you just slap on a different set of tires and you can, do pretty well in both of them.
The guys in the nut job, yeah.
yeah. So it's good to see, at least in the upper, if that's what you want to call it, the upper echelon of the classes, they play pretty well together. But like the lower ones, enthusiast, sport, anything like that. Like even for Street GT, if you're running Street GT, you're gonna get killed and like a Street or a Max, with a Corvette or a BMW like mine, just because you can't do enough to them.
Yep.
So.
And that kind of falls also like the Supras being in GTA street class, right? Like I know people who are like, oh, like you said, there's so many people building them for street class, but there are also people who are literally afraid to go into street class now because they're like, I got a
There's
stock
a
Supra.
few.
I have to be in street class because I can't go into enthusiast because
Yeah.
GTA street class is already stupid, as we've proven. Thank you very much for that car. They're like, yeah, it's hard to do, right?
Yeah,
Every
kind of.
rulebook has its
At
holes.
one point, one of the reason why we kind of had to retire the Supra at that point, just so we feel like we're becoming the reason why people almost don't want to do it.
Agreed.
So
Yeah.
that's why
Yeah.
we had to pull off. First of all, just like I think we've proven what we have to prove. It's time to move on to a different project. And also, at some point, you're starting really competing with your customer and friends, which at that point, like
They
it's
don't want to
not.
be your customers anymore.
Yeah. So that's why like we had to kind of retire the Super for say grid life and everything basically since the mid of 2023. But
Yeah.
if we are bringing the Super out again, which we seriously considering now, it's probably gonna go up to unlimited just to show like more kind of possibility.
What we've learned. What we've learned. And what we think we can achieve. Yeah.
So if
What do
the
you get-
Super, go ahead.
Well, no. Yeah, finish that thought, Alex. I
No,
was
no,
gonna go
because
sort of a slightly different
at
direction.
that point, because you're at that point you're not limited by street or track mod rules, so it allows us to be a little bit quite a bit more creative in terms of what we do with the car. So yeah, there's a reason why the car's on the lift right now. We're very seriously considering bringing that car back out next year,
Hey,
very
Awesome.
seriously.
Would love to see it. I think everybody always loves seeing that thing come back out. So, what do you guys think about the? I guess if you want to kind of call it in the global time attack rule, going to 275s for street. For street. How much of a factor do you think that is? I mean, the record is already deep, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
is it a 213 or 2?
Hey, Alex, move over so they can see the trophy behind you. Yeah.
exactly.
There you go. Yeah. There. Yeah.
Do you think those 275s? I mean, you think that's going to push it back a couple years before people are going to be getting close to that record just because of the smaller tires, or you think it's not that big of a deal?
So. I think
You just
give
gotta find time the other ways.
Yeah, I think you give guys like Kyle like enough time and a decent set of tires and setup, they'll figure it out. I don't think that record is gonna stand for very long. And if it does, great. If it doesn't this year, like totally expect it, because Kyle's been really freaking strong towards the latter half of last year. It was getting to a point where like, okay, well, there's no way we're touching him, and it's really awesome to see because we kind of helped partially build that program as well, and now he's kind of off doing his own thing, kind of running his own program, and wish him all the best because he's not only a friend but a great customer of ours, and we want to see where he go with that platform. So
Yeah, that's time attack at its heart,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but also like we all know this, like some one of us, like time attacker comes in, it's like that's everything I could have done to the car, and that's as best as could have driven it. We all know that's not true. There's always more in the car. There's always more in the driving. Tire limits, like limitation on the tire, always sucks. But on average, we have way better aero compared to 5 years ago. We have way better tire compared to 5 years ago.
oh yeah,
And there's a lot more knowledge in terms of like we see a lot more professional motorsport background consultant or company that's getting into sport. So, I mean, it helps for us to have the record there a bit longer.
cling
but
on just a couple more years,
but even though like even for us, it's just like putting the tire down to 275 on the Supra. Yeah, it sucks, but we can always find times elsewhere. So I think in short term, maybe in long term, it's not gonna be an issue.
And also, just one more point. For us here, I think records are like great. We'd love to get it. That's why I went was it this year that I went with this car to Road Atlanta just to try and get that one back.
2024,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah. So, last year, years are jumbling up. But like, because this is important to us, right? Records are important inherently because it means that at no point before this, no one was faster than you, right? That you did this under this rule book, that you freaking did this, and that's why it means a lot to us to get Road Atlanta. It was like the last chapter of that car for me in this GTA street class trim, right? Because we've done it, we've done Coda, we've done this. I don't care about Button Willow. I'm sorry, Mark. But like, yeah, it's just, we did it.
I
and
know it's tough on everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. But like once we did it, all right, that's over now. Now we can move on. Let's go chase some new records. So if somebody beats that one, great, good for you guys. And as Dewey and some of the guys have done Road America for Grid Life, they've already beaten it. So it's not like all of our records are intact. It's fine. That's
Records are meant to be
progress of
broken.
time is. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's always one of those things like, in all the times, we set records, we do these things, and our expectation is those records will stand for, in theory, 1 year. The next year, my expectation is always someone will beat that record because you set the benchmark and the next person is going to come along and try to best that benchmark. People like Willa Young, who have held on to the record at Buttonwillow for such a long time, to me, that's almost disheartening because I want to see people improve and do so much better and go faster. So it's almost disheartening to see that record hold for so long. I want to see people best those things.
I can see that.
So
yeah,
that's just me. I like to see things go faster, better, be greater. So here's the next question. All the tracks you've been to, what's your favorite track you've ever been to? And after that, what's your favorite event that you ever went to? It doesn't have to be a good track. Just had to be like the most kick-ass event you ever went to.
Well, that's hard.
Putting
We
you on
went
the
to so
spot.
many events now. Oh my god. All right.
Track is easy for you.
Yeah, track is easy. Road Atlanta, hands down.
Oh my,
there's-
you are terrible. Really?
You tried. What would you say? What would you have me say? Buttonwillow? You would have me say Buttonwillow? All right, Laguna is really up there. Laguna is awesome. I love Laguna, right? I feel like the challenge, the high speed corners is great, but you don't get you get the thrill at Laguna, but you go to like Road Atlanta and your pants is gonna go brown. To me, it's just oh my god. You go into turn one like on street tires in that car, we were doing min speed 90 on the entry. We were rolling off the brakes at 100 miles an hour and just better hope it sticks, better hope it grips.
Yep.
We threw the Hoosier car, the min speed went up to 101. I remember I almost killed myself in that corner so bad. And then last year at turn 12, you see the predictive. You're like, you gotta go for it. You're coming down the hill. You're flat out. You're like, all right, it's right there. It's one corner away. How bad do you want this?
Yeah.
Do you want it bad? Amir did it. Amir did it bad enough. He took half the car on the grass. I wanted it bad enough. My entire car was like just twitching and bobbling down turn 12. Like, how bad do you want it? I don't think because every other track, right? You finish a final corner, you're on the straights. You're just like, come on. But this is the one track where you're like, all right, you make a decision in that point. Are you willing to put it in the wall just to get that record? That to me is like,
we're like, you got it, what, like 200 or 300s?
It was close. It was a
It was
couple
close.
hundred.
It was like,
it
he was
That
just
corner.
like,
You
yeah,
did it
he
in
was
that corner.
telling me that I don't think I lifted for turn 12. Then we go look at the data. It was a half lift.
I did it.
It was a half lift.
I did.
It's pretty close. It wasn't a
It's
full
one of
lift.
those
It was like a half
it's one of
lift.
those lifts that really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
Oh,
like
no.
it's like
Listen, every lift matters.
Yeah.
Every lift absolutely
Especially you
matters.
already got through 11 corner and you know you're like, it's going to be tight. Like, if he had a full lift, we probably wouldn't got that record.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't. If I slow down to another mile an hour and a half, it won't make it.
It was
Alright, your favorite
200
track,
or
Alex.
300s.
Yeah, your
Me,
favorite track,
you know
Alex.
this, Coda.
Yeah, Coda.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Coda is my favorite track. Event is actually, there's few that kind of changed my life a little bit. First one was I went to Australia for the second ever year of WTAC, which was like 2011 or 2012. That was one event that changed, kind of lit my fire.
Your
That's still
trajectory in
burning up to
life
this point.
literally
Yeah, pretty much.
forked
So
at
that
that moment.
event kind of ruined my life effectively.
Well,
And I
the good thing
didn't-
about
I
it,
don't
it
know.
ruined mine too, because he dragged me into this.
technically, yeah. So effectively, I didn't go there specifically for that event, but I just happened to be on a trip with my mom and dad, and I happened to be in Sydney and not doing anything that weekend. So I just like grabbed my friends and hey, there's this event that's going. I heard it's pretty cool. Do you guys want to go? And then things just being downhill ever since. So that's one event that kind of just changed my life trajectory almost at this point. And the other one that is just like, if I need to choose one highlight moment of what we've done so far was Long Beach. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that was a good one.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
That's a
so
good
those
answer.
Are,
That's a good
those
answer.
are the two events that by far has like the biggest impact in terms of what I do and what I love. By
Alex,
a
were
pretty
you-
long shot.
Were you already into time attack when you went to the World Time Attack
I was
Challenge, or
more
were you just
into
sort of
like
somewhat
I was more
interested?
into just like modifying cars and
Okay.
stuff, but I wasn't really into any competition in terms of like time trials and everything like that. And then I did like one or two just like a casual competition event before I went to Australia, but after that it was just like nonstop every year for like 12,
Yeah.
13 years to this point.
Nice,
Yeah.
because that would have been like that. I mean, that time frame would have been like Nemo, the Evos. You had the Tilton Evo.
No, it wasn't Nemo. It was
even-
Sierra
Okay.
Cyber
yeah,
Evo with
yeah.
the original one, and
Nice.
the under Suzuki when his S15 is still
Okay.
S15, and like Sierra Evo, and
Man, that's awesome.
the Cusco Impreza was still a Cusco Impreza at that point. It was like
Okay.
I think it was the second ever World Time Attack. I think it was 2010 or 2011.
Okay.
That's some
awesome.
awesome history right there, Alex.
Yeah.
Love it. I love it.
My favorite, I don't know. Now Alex said Long Beach, it brought me back because I watched a Long Beach, our own YouTube video of Long Beach. Every now and then I do this because my memory is crap. But I go back and watch
I
my
feel
own
you there.
video and be like, oh, I did that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's pretty cool. We did that. My favorite, I think, has to be the first Coda we won with that car. Because, we showed up and then we got disqualified after the first day because they say our splitter was a half an inch too big. We trimmed it off. Alex and I were like freaking just... And this was right off of me binning the gray Supra. So we just finished this fresh build. And I was still, getting harassed online, effectively, for being the first
Which is still
idiot to-
up to today.
we still get hate comments on that video to today. It's quite funny. Like,
Haters gonna hate.
I've learned to grow past it, but back what was that, 4 years ago, 5
Internet
years
never
ago?
forget.
Yeah, they never forget. And, 6 years ago now. So like it was fresh in my mind back then. So to get that one, to put it down on the with the pressure on, and do it on that one, and kind of it relieved a lot of my pressure since that day. And so I kind of fell in love with that car since then. So those are our
It's still wild to me that I think you did a 222.
221, 222.
221. Yeah. Like, it is crazy to me that is what you were winning the street class with back in, 2018, 2019, somewhere around in there. I
That's
think it was
2020.
2019. 2020. Okay, 2020. A 222.
Yeah.
And within 4 years, you and Amir battled
13.
down to two 13s. Yeah.
13.
Whew, that's crazy.
It shows you the evolution. And I'll also say this. When there is direct competition, the level of energy that gets put into these things and what drivers and what engineers are capable of is absolutely astounding. But you need that direct competition. That's what I always say, by far, bar none. One of the things that really pushed me in my time attack career, per se, is I had a direct competitor in that first year of me competing that pushed me every event to go harder, faster, better. And with that, it pushed me to, essentially what I ended up as and doing. And that's the same thing with you and Amir. You and Amir, for the time attack community, was absolutely amazing to watch, just because you guys were constantly battling back and forth. Who could have it this day? Who could have it this day? Who could have it this session? And so, yeah, I know I love watching those events, and I look forward to you finding your next Amir, per se, in the BMW. And who's that going to be? Who's the who? Who's the person that you see as a competitor that might be coming out of the bush?
I don't know. Actually, that's a good question. I didn't think about it. We don't think about competition. We let the
Brad's been
competition come to
haunting
us.
Yeah, Brad's been haunting us on and off for the last
Yeah,
year,
yeah,
so
yeah.
he's gonna get something this year.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anything,
okay.
he's the first one
I
to
think
come
for us,
to mind.
competition. Yeah. I think it might be Brad, but nah, I don't hate him as much as I hated
No,
Amir.
I don't hate him at all, but just in terms of yeah, let's just say the 40-hour drive back from Laguna was a little bit rough.
Yeah, it was, but I remember when we were battling Amir, he beat us at Laguna at what
Coda.
was it? Coda, and then
Yeah.
Alex and I were in full just anger teenager mode. Like the entire 12 to 20 hours, I'm like, all right, what if we do this? Just throwing out ideas, just And what's funny is the year after we beat him, and he tells us, I did the same thing on my drive back to California. That he was doing in his anger teenager mode. Like, what if we do this to beat Jackie and Alex in the freaking Supra? Yeah, like that's what you're supposed to do, right? That's
Absolutely.
what the guys at Tippy Top does. Yeah. So yeah, it's
so like on the way back. First hour, is it just like silence? Y'all are both just like stewing in your anger, and then you just start like throwing stuff out, or like you just immediately start being like, all right,
immediate.
Here's like, we need to do this, we need to do that. I lost time here, I lost time there. Like, I know we could change this.
It's very fresh in your mind. I think when you suffer a really bad defeat, it's always straight in your mind.
And also a lot of the time, it's just like, it's a bad idea, but you just toss it out there. Because every once in a while, a bad idea might be a really good idea if you just, tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the thing that Jackie and I do. It's just like, if it's a bad idea, but it's an idea, it's just, the worst thing you can do is have like no idea.
Yeah.
But if you're just tossing the bad ideas out there, every once in a while, you do get one or two. That's like a pretty good hit.
Yeah.
So Alex, you're sitting over there like typing away on your phone.
No, he's usually driving. I'm
it's mostly Jackie sending me random things 2 a.m. on the next 2 days. Like, hey, what if we do this?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a nap. I'm like, wait, what if we put this on the car? And he's just like,
what if a rocket booster on the wing upright?
Yeah, you put a shark fin up there. I swear, it'll be great.
That was one of the ideas. We never went with it, but that was one of the ideas. Yeah.
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 There's been a lot of that.
Well, all right, guys. We've had a great time talking with you guys. We loved having you on the show. So give us a quick little shout out to all your social media and all your website and your business. Give us a little shout out. Tell us where to go to find you, and tell us what we can buy from you.
All right. You can buy anything that you see on the race cars, the PhD Racing Supra or the PhD Racing M2. And RevoZport parts on phdracing.store. And you can find me at YouTube, Jackie Ding Racing -PhD Racing, or Jackie at Jackie J Ding on Instagram. So, and Alex is time_ATTK on Instagram.
Which was a license plate that my wife gave me as a gift when we started dating.
Aww.
Ooh, fancy. I was looking at that the other day. I was like, Alex has like an OG Instagram account. The fact that he was able to get time attack without the time ATTK, like, you've had that one for a while.
Yeah, I still have that license plate too, because that was literally the first thing my wife bought me when we started dating. Was like a few months in, and then she knows I'm into this, so she bought me, because back then we're still living in Ontario, Canada, so I still own the time ATTK license plate in Ontario.
Guys, give yourself
Chicago
a woman
now.
like Alex's wife. That's
truth?
That's a keeper.
Yeah. You guys ever
Alright.
wanted to go up to do the Ontario or any of those tracks up there with any of your cars?
RevoZport Grand Prix track is probably
RevoZport,
one thing that we're going to try to, we talk about multiple times to make it happen, but it's either event conflict or other reasons, mostly just like conflict with, but that's one thing Jackie and I will always talk about. So if we ever get a opportunity that we don't have any conflict, everything, we want to do the RevoZport, RevoZport Grand Prix track. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
That's
All
awesome.
right, Kilgore, send us out, man. Let us know where we can find ourselves.
Absolutely. Thank you, of course, for everybody listening. Of course, thank you for Jackie and Alex for coming. We appreciate you guys. Looking forward to 2025. You can find us on YouTube if you want to watch us and see our pretty faces. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Perfect Lap Podcast, as well as we do have a website, perfectlappodcast.com. If you want to email the show, if you want to email us questions or email us comments, you can email us at maximumattack@perfectlappodcast.com. That's maximumattack@perfectlappodcast.com. Or feel free to comment on any of the YouTube videos or on our Spotify or Apple Podcast. We love interacting with you guys. We're looking forward to seeing you all at events in 2025. Be sure and give Jackie and Alex a high five whenever you see them in the paddock. I know they enjoy meeting all of you, hearing what you guys have to say. So we're looking forward to it.
All right, guys. Go fast. Take chances. See you guys out there.